Let's start by looking at the income statement of a manufacturing company, Blue Denim. Some simple observations we can make is at the top of the income statement, it has the name of the company, it says it's an income statement, and it tells us what period it's for. It is important that all sales revenue and expenses attached to a time period appear on the income statement. Also note that in the income statement, expenses are separated into three categories: production, selling, and administrative. The sales revenue we see is calculated by the price times the number of units sold. The primary use for the income statement is for external financial reporting. Investors and outside parties use it to determine the financial health of a firm, including the calculation of various important financial ratios. So during the month of May, Blue Denim sold 99,000 pairs of jeans at $8 a piece, creating revenue of $792,000. When that's subtracted from the cost of goods sold that we previously determined of $495,000, that equals a gross margin of $297,000. Gross margin is the difference between sales revenue and cost of goods sold. Gross margin equals the sales revenue minus cost of goods sold. It shows how much the firm is making over and above the cost of the units sold. It is important to note that gross margin does not equal operating income or profit, as it is computed without subtracting selling and administrative expenses. In other words, during the month of May, Blue Denim sold $792,000 worth of jeans. It cost them $495,000 to produce those jeans, but there were other costs incurred during the month. From the income statement in the example, we saw that selling expenses and administrative expenses are subtracted from the gross margin to arrive at the operating income. This is important because this is the amount of money that the company is actually making. Even if a company has good gross margins, it might not be profitable if the selling expenses and administrative expenses are too high. Now let's look at a service organization. You'll remember that in a service organization, they're not manufacturing a product or producing anything. Since they're not producing anything, in the income statement for a service firm, we won't see any cost of goods sold. Think back to our attorney. An attorney bills for services that they're rendering. Their sales revenue are the services that they billed for, and then their expenses might be office rental fees, photocopiers, or clerical assistance. In a service firm, the primary use for the income statement is for external financial reporting. Investors and outside parties use it to determine the financial health of a firm. Cost of goods sold, as we said before, typically does not exist on the income statement of service organizations because they generate sales by selling services rather than selling products. Now let's look at example 2.8 on page 51 to see an example of an income statement for a service organization. So they tell us that Comala Information Systems designs and installs HR software for small companies. Last month, Comala had software licensing costs of $5,000, service technician costs of $35,000, and research and development costs of $55,000. Selling expenses were $5,000, and administrative expenses equaled $7,000. Sales totaled $130,000. So looking at the first line of the income statement, we see their sales revenue of $130,000. All income statements follow the same order where revenue is listed first before expenses. We take the revenue, we subtract all of the operating expenses, and then we end up with an operating income of $23,000 for the month of May.